Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Today's video is part 27 in the 68 fastback build known as Fangled. I know I haven't put out videos in a few weeks, and those of you that follow along on here and on Facebook and on Patreon, you know that my mom passed away recently, and so we were taking time off to spend time with my mom and be with her before she passed away. And she did pass away. And I just let everybody know that's why there was a delay in making videos. There's still more to deal with that as far as family stuff coming up in the next couple months, and so I may be again taking a break in that process. So just letting you know. But I want to get back on the 68 Mustang. So in the last video, I was dealing with the headers, and they didn't fit. You know, I was so frustrated with that. And I've been in contact with Sal at TCI, Vice President of TCI, and he had told me to throw those headers away. Okay, good. And now Sal has created a new set of headers. He told me he was going to do that. He has sent me some pictures, which I can't share. I asked him if I could share the pictures. He said, no, not yet. And so he has sent me pictures of these prototype headers, and they look amazing. I will say that. He has brought a car into his shop, another Mustang, same setup, and he has test fitted these headers himself personally, and he told me that they're going into production as of this week, the week of May 4th. And so hopefully those go into production and they send me a set, because I want to show everybody, you know, the quality work that they're producing. And I'm hoping that a set shows up before too long. So now that I have that kind of on a side burner or back burner, I want to go on to work on the transmission tunnel for the car. I have a friend who works for a company called RAS, R-A-S, and I believe they're based out of Germany. And what they have is machines that do fabrication stuff. So like if you wanted to build a refrigerator or a toolbox, something along those lines where it's hard angles, and you can program the machine and it'll take a piece of metal and bend it all up. So these machines are incredible. But the difficulty for this situation is we're not building an angular thing, let's say. These machines can build a radius, they can build a curve, but it is not the type of thing where what we're doing is trying to build a enlarged curve, let's say, as it goes into the transmission, above the transmission, and goes from the rear to the firewall. So whenever they made the floor pans, as they still do, they have a die, it's a big stamp, compresses a piece of metal, and it's got that form that's already there. So we can't do that. I don't have that equipment. This company doesn't have that equipment. But my friend said, hey, let's see what it can do, and maybe we can make some pieces that I could use to make the tunnel. So that's what I did. So I'm in Peachtree City, Georgia at Ross Systems. You can see this really neat piece of artwork back behind me. But this business is set up as a display sales type of business for complex metal bending machines. And it's pretty impressive. I'm here with my buddy Kevin, and he's going to try to help me make the tranny tunnel for the 68 Mustang. Now this isn't what they normally do, but we're going to see what the capability of these machines are and whether he can help me out with this. So I'm going to show you some pretty cool stuff inside. Let's go take a look. So this is Ross Systems. There's my buddy Kevin.
Hey Barry,
hey,
how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
We'll
do a little handshake there.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on in.
All right. So this is the place.
This is where we make the magic happen.
This is where we make the magic happen. So this company is based out of Germany, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All the machines are made in Stuttgart, Germany,
Yep.
which is also, as you know, home of Porsche and Mercedes-Benz.
Okay.
So, you know, I know you're a Mustang guy. I'm kind of a Porsche guy myself, but that's okay.
That's okay.
We can still get along.
We can still get along. And so out here is your display area where you can do demonstrations and show people what these machines are capable of.
So again, all the machines are made in Stuttgart, Germany, but here in Peachtree City, we are the North American headquarters. We handle all the service, spare parts, And my job, one of the many functions, is the applications department. So we do a lot of customer demonstrations and also design for manufacturability. Somebody will come in and have an air conditioner that has, 60 sheet metal parts, and we'll redesign it using some of the advanced capabilities, and maybe they can make it out of 35 or 40 parts and reduce assembly time.
That's a huge benefit.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got all kinds of machinery here, and we're going to do a demonstration on this XLT bender, but let's look around and see what else you have available in the back.
So we have 16 different bending machines. We have the Mega Bend over there. That's our big boy bender that can do a 1/4 inch steel up to 3 meter in length. And over here we have $7 million in spare parts. And this is our high-speed multi-bend center. This is fully automatic. We can have a lot of different load and unload configurations, but the tooling automatically sets up for the length of the part. So the operator places a piece of metal here, hits the button, sets up the tool change, and you can literally have a lawnmower deck, then a coffee pot, then a NEMA box coming out one after another, and the average cycle time is about 30 to 40 seconds.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Impressive machines, that's for sure. And you said you have inventory back here and different parts. Yeah. Oh, you got a great big long bender over here.
Yeah, and this is more for the roofing market. So we, this XL Center will, do typically, you have commercial and residential roofing, and this is more for the residential roofing market, which are typically longer type panels.
So one of the machines we're going to look at is this Ross XLT bend. And this does multiple bendings. They've got a CNC style of programming, let's say, to where you can make complex panels. So he's going to run this machine from the back. Let's take a look and see what it does. So there's a program, and these instructions, they have switches here you can step on to make it activate, but it's automated right now. You may see overhead there's a laser right here that indicates where you put this in the machine. You probably hear the air. It's got a vacuum system that holds the sheet metal in place. There you see the laser lit up. So it locks it in. Resetting the panel. So there's the finished product. Now this is designed for a piece of equipment, or what is it for?
So this is normally going to go into job shops or equipment shops. These machines can be used to make electrical boxes, they can be used to make toolboxes, etc. But most of this is going to be for box and pan work. There's a lot of other industries we can use this machine in as well.
Okay, this is just a demonstration of what's the capabilities of that machine.
Yes,
okay,
it is.
Very cool.
This machine can bend all the way up to 11 gauge mild steel at 10 feet as well.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. There you go. I'm not going to make that at home, I can tell you that. So this is the panel that I'm working with. I've shown you this before. This back section is actually part of the floor pan with the tranny tunnel, and then the forward section is the firewall and a transition going up, and that is the secondary piece that I made to make it mate into the firewall where I'd cut it off. So what I'm trying to do is sort of replicate this. I want to have this curve in the back. I want it to widen out like it is now, but we probably can't make the whole thing in one shot. It's too complex for that. So what Kevin's going to do is take some measurements, and he'll explain what he's going to do here as he's taking these measurements.
Basically, I'm going to try to get kind of a rough base dimension, and then I'm going to draw it up in CAD with a slight taper and then a radius bend, and then I'm going to take this over to our fully automated machine so I don't have to sit there and gauge the, each bend to do the radius and move it. So I'm just going to let the machine do all the heavy lifting. So the calculation will all be done by the computer, dump it right to the CNC machine and hit the button.
And so what I'm also trying to do here is I'm eliminating the opening for the shifter. So this doesn't have to be squared off like this. It can be a little more rounded because it will have that low car shifter on top, and we don't need this dip in the middle. So none of that would be replicated. So the transition, as long as it's the same on the back edge here and pans out the same, this really doesn't come into play too much except for clearance. Also, this is going to be longer because I have a gap underneath where this mates to the transmission. So it's going to sit up a little bit like Kevin's demonstrating here. And what he'll probably do is make this longer than what it needs to be so I can trim it down as necessary. So he's going to work on getting this measured up and put it in the CAD program. So I'm back at Ross, and my friend Kevin has been experimenting. So the idea, of course, is we're trying to make our own transmission tunnel. And I left him with the pieces from the that are underneath this from the tunnel that I cut out of the car. And he created this piece, which will replicate basically the back section where the shifter would mount. And then he started experimenting with the forward piece. Now, because I had to leave him and we weren't able to discuss this, he was just being creative and made this piece, and he just taped them together. And the idea was so you could see the transition and how it works. Now, what we're dealing with is this piece of cardboard that I made the template of the car. I need this piece wider, and I also want it longer. So Kevin's going to do a demonstration using this machine over here, and we're going to talk about that as well. And he's going to cut some new pieces. So what I'll end up with is probably a couple of these and some variations of this forward section that goes up onto the firewall. I think it's pretty cool. You can see the radius here, and it's made with multiple bends, and so is this one here, and it's also on a taper, so it gets narrower as you go back. The machine they're using, he was telling me, it has really tight tolerances, as in like these little bends. You can see all the little bends in this. If you were doing this in, say, a really nice piece of stainless, they can increase these numbers of bends to where it actually comes out as a curve. So I think that's pretty cool. We're going to do a demonstration on this, so let's see what Kevin comes up with. So Kevin's going to tell us about this machine and what the plans are.
Well, this is our high-speed machine, way overkill for this part, but this is my favorite machine because I'm lazy and I don't have to touch anything. So I'm basically just going to throw the blank on, and it's going to do a laser measurement. So if the blank isn't perfectly square, it automatically squares it up. And then there's a manipulator arm that brings it in position, and we're going to watch from the back of the machine as it bumps not only a radius, but does a tapered radius. I could set the set down position. I have it positioned on the belts.
Okay.
So then it transfers right back to me.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
So so there's these are like are these magnetic belts, or are they?
No, they're
just rubber.
just rubber.
Oh, so it just okay, great.
Yeah. So to do this, manually would take a lot of work. This was I just drew it up in CAD, imported the file, and then hit the button. So again, I'm lazy. I like doing it this way.
Very good. So Kevin has brought the new piece over that matches the first piece that he made. Let's see how close they fit together.
So they're stacked, You're going to get a plus or minus 3.5, 4 thousandths bend to bend tolerance on this machine, part after part, day after day. You don't have to think about tolerances anymore.
That's pretty cool. I mean, you can see how tight that fit is. So it's obviously a perfectly matched piece to what was there before. So we're going to move on and try to do something different with these pieces now. What I have now is a variety of pieces of metal. And this was our first run right here. And this was meant to be the back section. So you can see these angles. Now the machinery they have, they can actually do, let's say 100 bends in this section, and it'll look more like a curve rather than these little angles. But that's okay because carpet is going to cover this anyway. We also made this piece, which interacts with this piece. And so this may end up being what I use to make this section where I cut it back for the firewall. However, we also have these pieces. And this is just a straight transition. This was like the second try at making something to interact with this piece. And as we did all this, as he did all this, he decided to make these two halves. So basically this curve here, this shape here, is the same right here. But he left the panel long. And he did the same thing with this opposite side. So I think there's a lot of material here that I can use to try to make this tunnel. Now obviously it's going to take some cutting and fitting and testing and all that sort of thing, and I'll go through all that, but I'm going to start with trying to, I believe, take that piece and trim it down so that it can basically mimic this piece. So I'm going to show you that in the car and what I'm planning to do with that. Before I get too far along, I'm going to show you, I took some cardboard here, this is 3 layers, and I just folded it up into 3, stacked it up, let's say, as 3 pieces, and then taped it together and put it on top of the transmission. This is just to make sure I've got a gap under there. I should also say that I have 2 pieces. I thought I only had 1. I have 2 pieces like this piece. As you can see, if I set this down in here, this shape, this corner, is a more crisp corner than what I need. And as I said, this is just a starting point. I'm going to be experimenting with this. I may be using a piece of pipe to get a more consistent curve that I want, but this is just to get a start. I also brought this piece out this side a little more. It was pretty close to the transmission, and I put a screw up here just to hold it, the 2 pieces together, because this is not welded to the firewall yet. So the goal is, of course, to cover this up. Now, what I want to do is end up with it somewhere like that, and this will take a little bit of time to massage this into place, but I'll start by reducing this leg, because right now it's too tall and it's pushing into this radius and it's making this curve out. So I need to just start drawing and trimming things. And this is just initial cutting. And I'll use my throatless shear that I have just to cut off these pieces. And then I'll go back and forth multiple times and kind of trim this down to get it where I want it. It's going to take a little time, but I'll show you as I progress how it comes together. This is the throatless shear that I talk about, and basically I'm going to, I have this line on the outside right here. I'm going to put a mark there and there, and just do a rough redraw of that line, because you can't put this in to the shear the other way. It won't go, there's no room, it won't fit going this way. So I have to be able to come in from the top. So just to start, And that's how we get started on doing this. I'll kind of repeat the process on this side. And this one, I'll do it cutting this from the front instead of the back. And I know my line is not accurate. It's just a rough guide to get me started. I may have to angle this more to get it around my paint mixer. So there's a start. Trimming off those two corners. Alright, I've done some trimming, and what I was doing was angling this back, because as you go up, this section needs to come back, because I cut this basically square across, so you can't go parallel. You have to go at an angle. So I've trimmed this back, and I'm pretty close to where I want it, but I know now this bottom edge is still too long, and every time I push down, this is wanting to go out. So I drew a line down there, and I don't try to take a big cut automatically. I just start with a little bit at a time. I've also reshaped this slightly just to help it tighten up on this back section. So I'm going to trim these down and then do some more test fit. Now I've trimmed this several times. You can remember the leg was quite a bit longer, and I've been shortening it up. And I think what I'm going to end up doing is basically overlapping this. So rather than try to do a butt weld, I'm feeling better about doing a lap weld. It'll add some more strength to it, and it'll be easier to do. And it's not going to make really any difference, because all this will be covered up by carpet. So I think I'm pretty happy with this piece. Now you can see where I've drawn these lines, and that's where I started with the original length. And so I drew that line, and then I cut off, drew another line and cut off. And like I said, right now it's right about where I want it. I think what I'll end up doing is I'll probably take some self-tappers and just try to put them in. I don't want to tack this in yet, because I need to make this piece. Now this one, I'm a little concerned, simply because the leg is not super long, and I may end up reshaping this somewhat, kind of like I did with this. On this one I did put a drive shaft in my vise, and I curved this more, and it worked fine. It actually worked out really well. But I want to secure this without having it permanent. Some things to consider. I'm happy with this. I realize it's going to work, it's going to be nice, no problems. But we have to look at this shifter. And the reason for that is, if this car is, to be raced, the driver's going to be pinned in with a safety harness. Okay, so you've got like a belt strap and shoulders. So I'm about the same size as the owner. I'm about 5'10", 200 pounds, and relatively we're the same size. So I have to look at how this is going to play out. So it can't go up here, because with being strapped in, you can't reach it. So that's not going to work, and you'd be forcing your shoulder forward. So this is going to have to be back somewhere in this range at what would be an extended arm length. With that, we have this cable. And so what's going to have to happen, I've already done some kind of experimenting here. If I put the cable into the shifter like it's intended, and then I end up tucking the cable this direction, the shifter will need to be somewhere right about here. So what I need to do in the future is build a perch for this to sit on, because this plate is angled up right now, and I'd rather have it angled down as much as I can. Now, I can't push the cable underneath the seat. I can't go through the seat riser right now. So my intent is I will create a hole that will go through the seat riser and through the pan, and then go forward to the shift linkage location. So this is going to be fine. I just need to, verify how that's going to fit both of us, me or him. I'm going to reset the camera so you can see a little better. So this is the normal seat. This isn't the seat this car will have. I'm just using the factory seat. So like I said, if I take this, and I have not connected this because there's a snap clip that goes around it, and I just don't want to put it together, so I'm just temporarily holding it in place. But you can see this is going to have to sit up some, but for me, I'll make sure that it's with a good arm's reach, so we're not forcing ourselves to get to the shifter. So I'm okay with this, and I think this is going to work out just fine. The other thing that is to be considered is the wiring harness. Now, somebody had mentioned this I posted on Facebook, and they talked about this. The fact that these transmissions have a big cannon plug right there, and that's what this is. And the only conflict with this at all is this long ear handle that sticks out from the side of this, because it's meant for you to push on it and cam it into place. It kind of screws into the transmission. So at this point, you can't put it on as with the transmission in the car. And I say at this point. And the reason for that, this tab sticks out really far. And this part of the tunnel up here would have to be bent either way out or make a relief, a little hump for this to fit, or trim down this little arm. The other alternative would be, when you put the transmission in, just have this already attached. You don't have to put it in after it's installed. This can be in place, and once it's in and this is cammed down, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be taking it out, more than likely. And if you're pulling the transmission, you're going to be moving the stuff around anyway. So I don't think this is going to be a concern. I'm going to continue making this happen. I think I've decided I'm not going to try to put screws in it because it's too close to the edge. So I'll just put some tack welds to get it where I want it. And if it works out, it'll be there permanently. A little bit of it. And by doing it this way, at least I know that it's not going to move when I'm trying to fit the next piece. on to the next section. I want to show you this. Whenever I make something like this, I use CAD, right? Cardboard aided drawing. And I've got this mocked up pretty close to where I want it. This transition here is not super steep. It's a subtle angle, but we couldn't make it all in one piece. So when you do stuff like this, I keep plenty of cardboard around. I start off with just a piece of cardboard and I push it up in place, and I'll push on the corners, or where the transition is, and I push down on that to create an angle, and then I cut that off. And then I go to the next section and I do the same thing. So once I get happy with the basic edge, I'll make that, and then I've made another piece because I realized I had too much out of this area. And so you just keep on cutting away until you end up with the shape you need. So I repeat, cut, repeat as necessary. So like this one, I don't know how well it shows up. There's a gap up here because I didn't get the position right. I need to go deep into the firewall, and that's why I added that material there to take care of that. So I put that one up, and I needed to add some length down at the bottom here, so I put a little arrow where I need to add material, and then I made this piece. Once I had that one done, I started working on this side, and I did it in two pieces rather than one, because you can see what you're doing. You can see where it ends, and if you are trying to make this all in one piece and you mess it up, then you're gonna have to make all this over again. So I like to work in a half and a half. Right now I'm pretty happy with how this looks. This is gonna work out really nice. Now, my friend had bent up some metal for me, and he had made me these big pieces, and they were good. He repeated this angle on this, this curve, these bends on this curve. But the problem was, when I put it up here, I realized that this leg, using it on this side, is going to be too short. So we've got a real long section there and a short section there. So I asked him if he could make me some new ones. So he did, and now I have this piece, which I can put in place, and I can take the cardboard and trace this on top, and then I can cut it in the middle and get the the half. I'm not trying to make it all in one piece. I don't like to do that. It's too risky. But I also figured out that what I could do is probably take this piece, maybe, I don't know if I have, still don't think I have enough leg length. I could take the cardboard, put it on top of this, and see if this will work the other way. Because this one was started out as the one for the driver's side, but now it may work on the other side. So I'll take this out, set this up on a table, and we'll look at it again and see what I can make happen with this piece of metal, maybe. So I was looking at this. This is the driver's side, and if I try to use, that would be too short. There's not enough length here. So if I switch this around and put this one on this side, I have all kinds of length for here, and I might actually have enough to do going the other way, because let me take these apart. I think I can make that work. There we go. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to make this one the half for the passenger side. Yeah. Why not? Let's see how that works. So I got to figure out, I can't come back here, I'm probably going to leave this a little long. and I can use my angles or my the bends, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5 bends, so I could use the third one as a reference to try to make it all straight. And I'll probably leave this long too. I really want to get this side taken care of. So I'm gonna come off like that. And I will cut this long overall. Like, I'm not gonna try to cut it exact. Even though I have a good cardboard template, you just never wanna do that. You never wanna take that chance of cutting it off perfect and ruining it. Because if you make a mistake, you have room to grind and cut back. So I may just trim a little bit of this off just to get rid of these jagged edges. And I'll put a reference mark on each one, even though I'm not going to cut it. That was my overlap. So this one, spring crimp. This one was on top of. Hold on. So I drew lines. There we go. So there it is. Yeah. So that would end up right about there. Okay. I'm going to cut this out. So as I'm doing this, I'm using a set of handheld tin snips here. I have another pair that I normally use, but apparently the bolt that holds the jaws together broke. So I'm using this pair, and while it does work, it's still cumbersome. So I try to trim off what I can, and then I attempt to start making cuts to follow the pattern. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this is kind of pointless. I know that I can do this with the throatless shear, and I make these few little cuts and try to get started, and then I'm like, this isn't going to work. Just too much effort here. So I cut off this other end just to try to get it started. And, you know, there's other tools out there. There's power shears available that are fully automated that you can use. But the throatless shear is so handy. And you just have to figure out how to place it. So I had set it up on my little welding table here. And you can cut in and out with this just by rotating as you cut through the metal. So I made my initial cut to get the biggest part off of this, and then I had to rearrange the placement of the throatless shear because you don't want to have the table interfering with it. Now you can see the table flexing a little bit. Ideally, if I had this on an open stand, like a heavy duty stand, I wouldn't even have to worry about it moving or having an interference, but I don't have that space or have that available to create one of those stands just to have it sit kind of in the way all the time. And I normally use this on the metal table that I have, where I have my paint shaker, because I'm not cutting stuff this big. I'm usually working with something a lot smaller. But you can see how quickly this makes the cut and makes it nice and clean. So again, I had to figure out, what do I do here? I traced the outside of the panel, and then I just put my pattern on the inside and retraced it as well because I wanted to cut off this back corner. And it's easier to do that from the underside of the panel, let's say, than it is from on top because there's nothing in the way. So I trimmed that off and look this panel over and make sure that it's going to work out the way that I want, verify with my template. And I trace the perimeter of this as well, just in case I decide to cut it on the inside later on and keep it consistent with the outside. So let's see how it fits in the car now. Let's see how this fits. That's pretty close. I've got about a 2.5 inch, maybe 3 inch overlap here, which tells me I can move the front edge forward. So like if I just trace this just to show where it's at. That's how much space I have, well, here, to come forward, because I don't necessarily need to have this internal flange, but I could. Or the simple thing would be to trim this off. Because once I have this established, it's not going to matter. Moving forward is only going to, not going to make much difference. Okay. So I'm going to do some more trimming. I can see where, you know, a little bit up in the corner here, but overall, that's right where I want it. And then I'll get the other one made, doing the same thing, and we'll have another look at it. I really like this little Husky work light. It comes in so handy. Now this panel, I had already done the trimming. I didn't show it in the video. And I found that it fit a little bit differently than the one on the passenger side. If you'll notice, what I'm doing here is I'm trimming down the excess that is hitting the firewall, because this side, the driver's side, is more complicated than the passenger side, let's say. You have that transition from where the airbox sits, and so I'm just making sure it's going to fit nice and tight. But what I found was, as I was going through this, that these panels, like the passenger side is more square to the floor pan, meaning it's like in line. I didn't have to trim the inner flange, the straight flange. But when I put this panel up, I found that it kind of sat crooked. So as I'm going through this and I'm shaping it and getting these edges to fit the way that I want, the center line is off. So like the right side, the straight edge, is showing up crooked on the opposing panel. So what I'm trying to do here is mark out where those lines actually meet. So coming from right to left, I drew a line to straighten that out because it sort of flares a little bit to the left. And I had to do that to compensate for the spacing, as I said, on the driver's side. So I trimmed off that back edge, and then as I'm going through this more, I'm looking at the fore and aft line as well. So here I'm just marking it to try to get a more straight cut across. And then I also started looking at how that fore and aft line will run. And so I set this back up in place, and I've marked the different places on the firewall, like on the front and the back, to where the right side panel stops. And all I wanted was a little bit of an overlap, maybe not even half an inch. So I'm marking that on the second panel, and then I will draw a line on that so that I can cut that off and make it look consistent straight down the middle. It's kind of weird the way this turned out. I didn't expect it to be kind of offset like that, but it still looks good. There's nothing wrong with it. It actually looks very symmetrical, but it was just kind of weird that I had to cut the panel that way. And sometimes that's what happens. You start going one direction and you realize you need to make some adjustments to make these things match up and look more correct. So as I was saying, I'm marking this other drop edge so that I get a nice straight cut, and then retest fit that as well. And once I'm happy with it, I think it's time to start welding this in place. I'm pretty happy with this. If I take, again, this piece, put it up here, and I've drawn a line around it just to keep it, to show where it's at on the overlap. And then I trim down this piece, same thing. Fits really nice, very, very happy with it. And what I want to do now is some finesse. What I mean by that, if I take this out of the way, you maybe see here, I drew a line, and that is basically, there's a gap now underneath this. So if I take this one off, that line, get the pointer out, that line is way back here, and then there's a space here that's going to be sticking down. and I don't want that. So I'm going to cut ahead of this line to this line and eliminate this section. Now I'll leave it here on the sides so that this new pieces overlap. The other thing, you see the lines here, that is where the panel meets, makes contact. And I did want to kind of relieve this a little more in this section. Oh, and I should point out, when I put in this piece, I also set the air box in to make sure there was clearance. So I have room to play over here. But I want to cut this back and maybe even bend it up to make a flange. I'm debating on that. I don't really want to cut it perfectly clean. I'd rather cut it and then roll the lip back so that these new panels sit on top of it. But I'll do some trimming, knock back some of this, and then obviously some of these, and that'll also make a little more room for these bolts that are right here for the transmission. So it's going to work out really good. So I'm going to make some cuts and do some things and maybe show you some of that, but I'm getting close to welding this fully into the car. Happy with it. Now once I decided to cut this off, I got out the 4.5-inch grinder / cutoff wheel. I have two of these tools. I keep one with a sanding disc and one with a cutoff wheel. Sparks were flying at me, so I took a piece of cardboard and set up on the side there to try to deflect them. Kept hitting me in where my leg was exposed and going through my sock, so it was a little uncomfortable. Now I'd left these flanges long intentionally because I didn't know where I would end up. And using this cutoff wheel is quick, but it's also a little bit bulky because it takes up so much space. It's just so big. It's great for doing quick cuts and getting into fairly open spaces, but eventually I have to switch over to a smaller tool to finish this off. Now, these sparks are flying all over, and I'm actually tilting my head to try to make it hit the face shield more than hitting me on top of the head or something like that. But I get those pieces cut out, and then I start working on that piece that I want to cut off of the tunnel. And this metal is the same thickness as the floor pan that was in the car. So it's, I believe it's 20 gauge is what it's considered. And so it's the same thickness. I've actually measured it exactly the same. And I'm taking the sanding disc here to knock off any rough edges and just what I can access from the top. Sometimes I take a Ziz wheel or a cutoff wheel and I'll put it on a straight grinder, let's say, and come up from underneath. That's one of my little tools I use. I'm cutting gaps in the flange so when I bend it, it doesn't try to get out of shape. But what I was trying to say was I take that cutoff wheel and I go underneath the flange that I've ground off or go in behind it and knock off the excess material as well. So just a simple thing you can do. Here I'm just using a very small pair of channel locks and just rolling that flange up. This adds some stiffness to the firewall as well. And once I get all that addressed and get it in place, I will put in the panels and start welding them. And as I state later on, I can come in from underneath and take a hammer and just tap those flanges up. And if I decide to weld them, I can. It's not really probably necessary. More than likely, I may just seam seal it because that's all you really need at this point. It's already going to be fully welded on the exterior. I think I'm ready. I'm happy with how everything is looking. As you saw, I put the flange on the perimeter, and it's not exactly as flat as I may want it, but that's okay. I just need it started so when I finish welding everything in and eventually pull the engine back out, I can come underneath that and just tap it up and it'd be nice and flush, and then I can seam seal it. So I'm ready to start welding this in. I'm also going to weld in the floor pan to the firewall, which I hadn't done before, just for this reason. So I'll get that taken care of, and hopefully that's going to take care of this section. As I said, I've already tested the air box for the AC, and it seemed to have good clearance. So we'll get that in. Then I may start looking at some other things. I got to look at that gas pedal again, see what kind of space I have over there. But for now, I need to get this in place. As you can see, I've already welded the perimeter of the first piece. So that's fully welded in. I did all of the plug welds where the floor pan sits on top of the firewall, so that's all welded in. And all I want to do is start by tacking this back portion of this right side. I just started with the right side because that's where I started with the whole process. So it doesn't really matter. One could have sat on top of the other way as well. I get those in place, and I realize that I have to push this side of the panel in. And so I took blocks of wood and set them on the side where the rocker panel and made leverage so that I could push on a piece of square tubing to push it into place while I tack welded it. Just, sometimes you have to come up with different ways, and leverage is key. So the 2x4 pushing against the square tubing gave me the leverage that I needed. Once I had that set up, I just started welding that bottom edge and continued that. And then once I was happy with how that looked, I moved on to starting to weld the edge where it meets the toe kick area. So I did a series of welds here, and this was really a challenge, not because of the weld, but because of trying to squeeze myself into this tight space. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't bend like I used to, and you get in a position and it starts hurting and you have to stop. So I took multiple breaks while I was doing this because I just had to stop and get out of there and stretch my back and get my hips working. So I get the other side set in place, throw in some tack welds, and do the same thing. The back part is pretty easy. You can see it, you can reach it. And then I start marking on that front section, and it's a snug fit. Luckily the dash is not in the car, the main dash. If that were in there, this would be really, really difficult to do. So that'll come later, no problem. I just keep moving around and trying to get all of these in place, use the Husky light as much as I can, and that helps a lot. As we get older, our eyes don't work so good. And so I have my little readers that I wear, but I probably could have benefited from a stronger set of readers at this point just to make sure I was getting in those gaps nice. But it's going together fine. It's going to be really solid, and it looks really good overall. I think I'm pretty happy with this. I don't know if I'd want to do another one like this, simply because it's just a struggle. But I realize now that I can have these pieces made. My buddy can make them for me, and I could do the same thing over again if I needed to. But I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I think this is turning out pretty nice. I wanted to show you this before I move to the inside of the car. This is where I had cut away part of the original, firewall, and trying to make a little more room for these bolts. And I think there's enough room now for them to actually come out if they needed to, which I doubt that's going to happen. If this thing comes apart, I'm sure everything's going to come out. It's not going to be pulling just the tranny. This looks really good. I'm very happy with this. Now, this was my buddy's design. Somebody actually sent me a picture of a company that makes something similar to this, and it says 65 to 73 Mustangs. This is different than what they are showing in those pictures. I think in the picture they have a different length, like from here to way up here. I don't know what the measurement is, but it's way up in this area, and then a shorter upper piece. So this is, just what we come up with, but I really do like it. Having these bends here makes it strong. Having the bends transition from one to the other looks really nice and strong. The difficulty I've run into is trying to weld this. Not because it's hard to weld, but because it's hard to get to. So I don't fold up like an accordion anymore, and it's very difficult to get up into these places. So I've welded this, and I've still got some welding to do on the seam, and it's not going anywhere, I'll guarantee that. But I may go over some of this later and grind off some of these welds. You can see a little high spots here where I stopped, and that's normal. It's not going to be perfect, because it's not. It's really hard to weld in a cramped space, And also, I probably need better magnifying glasses so I can see further. But, as I said, I'm very happy with it. And I'm still going to work on the shifter. That'll come probably later. I don't know if I want to worry about it just yet. I could, but I also am waiting for the headers to show up, hopefully, from TCI. And hopefully they come through and they provide me with a set of headers to demonstrate for them, actually. So there's a lot going on, but this is making me happy. Oh, the light just went out. My Husky light just died. So this is making me very happy. And as I showed you earlier, you know, this is an original tunnel out of 66, and this is what those pieces look like. My buddy bent up, and these pieces here. So I was thinking about cutting out the flange to reinforce the underside of that tunnel, but this thing is pretty solid. I don't think I'm going to have to do anything. I will make some sort of a perch or bridge setup for the shifter so that it's solid. You don't want that to move, and that'll come later on. So I'm pretty happy with the result overall. So that'll be the end of this video. As you already know, there's a lot going on in life. You know, I'm dealing with the loss of my mom and family situations, and there's just a whole lot going on, and it's going to take up time over the summer to, again, take care of some of those things. But I'm going to try to get what I can done on the car, and that's why I wanted to get that tunnel done. Hopefully Sal sends me some headers and I can try them and see if they fit. He said, I think he's confident that they're going to go into production, or they should be going into production either this past week or this coming week. So we'll find out about that as well. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you, especially to my patrons who support me on Patreon. That's more important than YouTube. The benefit there is anybody who supports me has more contact with me, and they also see videos that don't have any ads or anything on them either. So think about that. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there's a link down below in the description box. There's also links for other things, Amazon and tools and stuff that I endorse. So if you buy anything from there, I get a little percentage back. Otherwise, that'll be it. So until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Should I go over there now?
Yeah, I figured you would cut it.